The Uchiha clan, the clan boasting the reputation of the most powerful clan in all of Konoha. Infamous abilities and characters are derived from this clan. However, Sasuke Uchiha, the lone Uchiha, and the strongest Uchiha of them all, is seemingly commonly compared to the other respective members no matter which conversation you're participating in. However, at which point during the series does Sasuke actually surpass each main member of the Uchiha? But today, I'm just going to be figuring that out. And I got a very special guest here on the channel. Once again, go ahead and say what's up.
What's going on, guys? TG or ThunderGod here. Thank you for having me.
Oh yeah, anytime. Thank you for coming on. And yeah, so we're just gonna pretty much be putting Sasuke against all the other Uchiha clan members and kind of just seeing where he kind of surpasses them. And we do got different forms of each character to kind of give you guys like a longer, better video, I guess. And we got some more niche ones in there, like we got Kid Obito and Fugaku and stuff, which are kind of interesting. Anyway, we'll get to that. But do you want to go ahead and start off with like Kid Madara?
Yeah, so Kid Madara is like pretty vague, honestly speaking. We really don't know too much about his base abilities. We know that he was able to take on like full adult Senju pre-Sharingan, but we don't know exactly like who, like what adult Senju, like the feetless ones. So there just really isn't too much to go off of. And we're talking about this, like these adult Senjus could be Kakashi level or Iruka level. Like granted, you can maybe say they're stronger because they're full-fledged like Senju, but there isn't really much to go off of. And on top of this, Madara does have like a one Tomoe Sharingan, so it just kind of adds to the ambiguity of like where he is strength-wise.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's just too vague to kind of be like, oh, it's Madara, so he has to be strong. And these adults are like nothing, because you also gotta think like Sasuke also as a kid in Land of Waves was taking down like the Demon Brothers and stuff, who are somewhat formidable and actually have scaling, unlike these guys that Madara was combating with and whatnot. So I think that like Chunin exam Sasuke, or maybe even a little earlier, maybe like the Curse Mark one that fought and ripped off that one sound guy's arms, you know, maybe I think he'd probably beat up Kid Madara. What do you think?
Yeah, he just has a better precog, honestly, better showings, but probably a better repertoire of jutsu, with like maybe potential Chidori variants with the Chunin exams. And there just is more to go off of, whereas Madara's development, you know, you could lean that through a wide range, but you just would never be able to assert one way or the other. Like, you could just as easily dismiss a strong adult Senju for just like a weak one. And we know during this time period, they were just throwing ninja at the wall and seeing what stuck. Like, everybody was open for warfare, even kids. So
yeah,
we don't know how he killed them. We don't know what happened. It's just too much.
Yeah, they literally did that like life expectancy was like 35 years old or something. So yeah, Madara gets pretty much washed by, like, just to be safe, you could say Chunin exam Sasuke. I'd probably go to the earlier one. Maybe not the one that was like crippled with the curse mark, but at least the one that fought Gar in the finals. Definitely just probably beats up Kid Madara. Our next matchup though is weirdly enough a lot better, and it's Kid Obito. Kid Obito, yes, unironically, isn't actually that bad. Many people, like, when they look back at Kid Obito, they think he's very, very fodder, and they think he's like just a complete dunce. They think about him like saving the grannies and stuff like that, and him kind of just lacking behind Kakashi. But one thing to know is that like this Kakashi is an absolute beast, and Obito unironically doesn't really fall behind him all that much. We see that like in the Gaiden and the Third War flashback, we can actually see that Kid Obito is able to like completely keep up with this Kakashi. They're able to combo attack perfectly, and like there's even this one point where Kakashi like jumps out with the sword going like full speed at this one guy, and Obito ducks under Kakashi, sticks his legs up, catches the opponent's like arms, and then Kakashi just hits him like a perfect combo attack. And then like this is also like noting that then he gets like the Sharingan and stuff on top of that, so he has that precog that Sasuke would have in those Chunin exams, and he's already Chunin level. And it's like implied that these Chunin in the Chunin exams, like the actual one we saw, are not quite Chunin level. The only one that could be implied that is Gaara, and Gaara is like the first data book, depending on translation, says he's already Jonin level or already Chunin level. Most do say Chunin, and that's also what I kind of go with to say is at least already Chunin level. I mean, he's killing adults and stuff like that. But I think that Obito could give Chunin exam Sasuke a run for his money, and Loki would beat him up. Just him scaling to this Kakashi who's already a Jonin and stuff, and you know, with Obito again already being like a Chunin before like getting the Sharingan, which is just ridiculous. So getting on top, being able to precog anything that Sasuke could do, and then scaling to this Jonin Kakashi. And do you want to go and talk about how like Kakashi lines up and how he scales, or?
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple different ways you could look at it. Because I know a lot of people are going to look at, oh man, Chunin exam Sasuke, he's so strong. He's like weightless, lead speed, and stuff like that. But when you actually consider the fact that Kakashi was beating Guy in pure taijutsu throughout the Chunin exams, he just straight up beat him. If you go back to the flashback, he's like holding his wrist. So, and like from what's displayed, like he just beat him in straight taijutsu. And the fact that it's actually implied that Kakashi was copying Guy's movements or was using moves akin to them based on Guy's statement about Sasuke copying Lee's like, or using the Lion's Barrage being kind of a Kakashi-like move would also imply that Obito being on this level isn't really that inconsistent, and Kakashi's just kind of an animal, honestly, and it would just make Obito that much more impressive. So, and the fact that Obito's not really slacking that much behind without his Sharingan, and then he could match this Kakashi with it, just kind of goes to show. And I will say too, the Sharingan is a pretty big amp, because Obito also did lose the Guy in the Chunin exams, and then he goes to like matching somebody who beat him. So it's a pretty big jump, the fact that he got that 2 Tomoe and what he was able to accomplish.
And if you want like a more like empirical showing of the Sharingan, obviously that's what like Kakashi needs for him to be able to like perceive his movements with Chidori and Raikiri. It's literally just that Sharingan perception and that speed amp. And I'm of the opinion it actually increases like base speed, not just perception, as it also does increase perception. So this Obito kind of gets rid of Sasuke's main advantage, which is the Sharingan, and he just has the same thing. One thing you could say about Kakashi is you could say that the Third Shinobi War, like the Leaf Village was pretty low on military power, and then Kakashi got like a Jonin status because they just needed more shinobi to be put into the war, which does make some sense, I suppose. But the ages could also allude to like Kakashi getting his status at the very early end, or at like even before the Third War kind of started, I guess. And whatnot, because if you don't think that, then that means Kakashi is like 6 years old killing like full grown adults in the war and whatnot. So yeah, we think that like I think that Final Valley Sasuke is probably the Sasuke that would be needed to actually unironically beat Kid Obito. What do you think? You want to talk about that?
I agree. He just has like a far better precog, like with the 3 Tomoe Sharingan. And I will say like the 3 Tomoe to 2 Tomoe, the difference cannot be overstated in how much more vividly it allowed Sasuke to just overpower Naruto. Even if you want to argue like he got an amp from it, just how he was able to position his like counter blows to that Naruto allowed him to dominate him. So he would just be able to, like, even if you argued like Obito was faster, kind of like maybe if you want to argue that Naruto was, Sasuke would just be able to outbox him in terms of hand to hand. This also isn't accounting for like the curse mark stage 1 or 2, which I'm not gonna say it's a 10 times multiplier because me or Virhtue, like, we really don't agree with that sentiment, but you could at the very least say it's a couple times it would offer a speed amp because the curse mark does. So the fact that he would already be kind of outboxing him, and then he kind of has this amplifier that would also amplify his like Chidori, it would just be kind of ridiculous what he would do to this Obito, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that like Final Valley Sasuke is weirdly enough what it would take. But no, yeah, it's just kind of weird to think that like Kid Obito is above Kid Madara. It's just kind of weird because most people have that general consensus that Obito is like trash, and I'm actually glad you brought this to my attention before recording. But yeah. Next up, we got Fugaku. Now, Fugaku gets really inconsistent on where you could scale him. So Fugaku, a lot of people tend to just say that he's relative to Minato because they had the Hokage position spots, and they think of like Yashiro Uchiha, like in the novel, stating that he would have been a better pick. But this is literally just Yashiro being completely biased and saying that Fugaku would be a better pick over Minato because, again, that would lead to a lot more advantageous position for the entire Uchiha clan. They even like end up like saying like Fugaku may not have been a great pick, but Lord Orochimaru should have been chosen over Minato just because they wanted something better out of like what actually happened to them, I guess. So Fugaku's not really a rival to Minato. I know there's some anime interpretation stuff that kind of alludes to that idea, maybe a little more, or it paints him at least a little more impressively, but like in the manga and in the novels, Fugaku really isn't that much. Me and TG do both agree that he's like early MS Itachi level, and now the thing about Itachi's like MS is many people are very quick to note like Sasuke's progression with his MS during the 5 Kage summit, and they talk about his hatred amps and everything. And Itachi should actually be the same way. Granted, probably not as quick. It was probably like within a year, he kind of went like from low tier MS level to like high tier MS level, because we actually do know that the base 3 Tomoe Sharingan is implied to have an upper limit to like where like a peak 3 Tomoe can actually be. And obviously that differs between users, at least just like how much it amps them to like a certain level, because yes, you can have like 2 peak 3 Tomoe characters, but one just be innately stronger just through other physical abilities. So obviously you can't really use that, but like in terms of just the raw eye, the 3 Tomoe does have a cap out, and we both kind of think the MS does as well, because it's implied in the data books that Itachi kind of got like a power at the peak of the MS, or like even beyond the MS, and he obviously doesn't have an EMS. And then we think that like Sasuke in the 5 Kage Summit probably was just approaching that level of his MS where he almost capped it out, but then he just end up going blind and whatnot. So Fugaku's relative to like this early MS Itachi, not quite that later MS Itachi, which could allude to like how high he feels. Do you want to talk about him real quick, or?
Yeah, I mean, you covered the bases pretty well. Honestly, like the biggest thing is just that different mediums showcase him a little differently. Like the anime paints him as a lot more impressive. Itachi's like, oh, it's gonna be this life or death MS battle with my father. Mangekyo Sharingan versus Mangekyo Sharingan. But again, at the end of the day, like it's just not that much to go off of. Like this would just kind of be like the cap out for this. And when you kind of think about like where that young Itachi is, it's like, okay, it makes it a little easier to talk about like where that Sasuke would be as well. So there just really isn't that much to go off of for Fugaku. So where do you think like he caps out in terms of like the Sasuke forms?
I think that I want to say 5 Kage Summit Sasuke should be able to beat Fugaku. But maybe an earlier version. Do you think Heavy Sasuke could beat Fugaku?
That's a bit tougher. Especially since Heavy Sasuke can actually defend from the Mangekyo Sharingan, at least Itachi's, if you go off the data book interpretation.
Yeah.
Which might actually just paint him as a superior. Again, it's one of those things we just don't know the upper limits of Fugaku. So it's like you could kind of like sway it one way or the other. It's just kind of like how nitpicky do you want to be?
Yeah, no, I would just say that regardless of interpretation you want to take, I would just say either Heavy Sasuke at like a full power beats him, or at least an early 5 Kage Summit like V1 fight beats him. Yeah. Do you have any closing thoughts? So I would just say 5 Kage Summit wins.
I agree.
Yeah, okay. Now, weirdly enough, this is like the next session goes into another like misconception about young Itachi, and it's Shisui and where like Sasuke surpasses him at. And a lot of people really think that Itachi and Shisui are equals, and they're just not. Do you want to talk about Shisui?
I mean, yeah, it's the only thing that can really be go off of for Shisui is like the record allegedly between Itachi and Shisui. Other than that, Itachi's actually just painted like inferior to Shisui, like even in their encounter against what's the Hyuga dude's name? We'll cut this out the video. I completely forgot.
Mukai Kohinata.
I'm not gonna repeat that.
Mukai, just say Mukai.
Yeah, thank you. We even see this evidenced against Mukai, how Itachi just gets absolutely dominated, and it's more so Shisui with his MS that's able to clutch up a W. But that's all you really have for Shisui. It's just like he would be above like pre-MS Itachi and stuff like that. Granted, you could maybe say he's more comparable to like post-MS. We just don't know. We just know he should be like definitively above Itachi at that point. And then after that, it's more so implied Itachi surpasses him. At what point? It could be a little more vague.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I will say like Shisui is really underrated. Me and ThunderGod are both of the opinion that Shisui is way higher of a threat than what most people like to grant him at. Now I would say do not take the statements of him being the greatest ever in Body Flicker as like complete objective fact. Take those with a little bit of grain of salt, because you gotta remember these are Uchiha clan members who are making this, and again they're pretty biased. So we also know that like this is after like Hokage Miyato's term, so this is like obviously after like Miyato earned the reputation through the war of being praised among all ninjas the greatest in godlike speed from the third war and stuff like that. So this Shisui probably wouldn't be above Minato, so just stop with that. But he could be above like an early 5 Kage Summit Sasuke, if I'm being honest. Now, why do I say this? Well, I do have a Shisui video up. You guys want to check it out? It kind of flopped, but you guys should go check that out. And Listen, Shisui is able to perception blitz Danzo in the novel. So in the second Itachi Shinden novel, you get their encounter, except Shisui has a paralytic poison inside of him by an Aburame clan member. And the thing is, Shisui is able to body flicker away from Danzo, and Danzo cannot see that. Now you're like, okay, yeah, it's almost like pseudo teleportation. It's literally like its whole idea is the eye can't really perceive its movement. However, the problem is when Shisui activates body flicker, he never does it without using the half tiger sign on his right hand, which kind of alludes to the fact that Shisui probably brought his hands up in front of Danzo, or his right hand up, and then body flickered away before Danzo could even see it. And this is a Danzo prior to the Sharingan, so you may be thinking to yourself, well, wouldn't Danzo's perception just be worse? Well, not really. And this kind of like gets into like the Sharingan and whatnot, and I guess, but pretty much the Sharingan does amp you, but it amps that eye. And other than that, it actually drains the eye, especially if you're not of the Uchiha clan. This is shown with Kakashi, obviously, of it completely draining all of his other stats, except for that eye is amped because it's the Sharingan, and the rest of the stats are being hurt because there's more allocation of chakra to that eye. It's draining him more.
I have another example, too, to bounce off of this. You also see this with Sasuke's Rinnegan as well, because he doesn't have a dual Rinnegan. Yeah. His single Rinnegan. And I'm not saying it makes him weaker, but it does drain more chakra than, like, his left eye's abilities or the other eye's abilities. So this is consistent with other dojutsu. Continue. I just had to throw that in.
Yeah, I completely agree. But pretty much Danzo would be getting all these Sharingan, literally like 12 Sharingan on his arms. And yes, those eyes would be amped, but the rest of his body would actually probably just be worse, like being like unironic, because that arm, if you really want to be generous and say that Hashirama cells helped it, did it really to the point where his like normal eye, his non-covered eye, is like back to normal? Maybe. So like at best, you just say his perception is the same, if not worse, in the 5 Kage Summit. And this is one that's, his perception is always above Sasuke. He may not be able to completely react to Sasuke's movements, but it's definitely like in pure combat, but it's definitely like above him, like his perception alone, I guess. So Shisui could be on that level with like a higher interpretation, which means that Shisui should be able to beat up like V1 fight Sasuke and whatnot. And not Shisui, but Sasuke's rage amps throughout the 5 Kage Summit are kind of crazy, and like his like Susanoo Evolve amps and stuff. Do you want to go ahead and talk about those and where Shisui go?
Yeah. So not a lot of people realize that Sasuke is kind of getting double amped throughout the Kage Summit, because Obito had originally sent him there to actually have him develop his physical or his dojutsu and become stronger. And we do know that Sasuke actually does become stronger the more he uses his dojutsu. The minute his Susanoo evolves, his body matures, and it does get stronger as well. Sasuke just kind of getting amped twice because he's also getting hatred amps. And the hatred amps are also not like directly correlated to the Susanoo, because they're explicitly noted even with his base Sharingan. So he's also, and this is also noted with the data book, saying his stats are bound to increase with his Mangekyo Sharingan. So you essentially have him growing stronger with his like base abilities via hatred amps. He's just getting stronger, his chakras becoming more potent, and then you have him getting stronger as well with his Susanoo as well, and his Susanoo's evolving, also making his base stats stronger, which is just elevate him even higher, which is also why he's able to excel and rise up so fast throughout the Kage Summit. He's just eventually getting these dual amps that, and due to all this, it kind of forced him to teeter out towards the end of the 5 Kage Summit. Is also why his eyes burn out. But the fact that he actually did make it to the complete stage Susanoo in the span of like one session at a summit is pretty impressive, to be honest. Like, it's kind of crazy to think about. So it's just pretty explicit that he's just getting like dual amps, and it's just making it pretty ridiculous by the time the summit's over.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think like probably peak 5 Kage Summit Sasuke is what's going to be needed to actually be able to take down this Shisui, if I'm being completely honest, like a full power Shisui. And obviously this isn't really going to go into Kodo Matsukami, because that's just going to get awkward and say he can Kodo everybody. So yeah, for Shisui, we're just going to say that peak 5 Kage Summit Sasuke is what surpasses him. Now, next up, we got our, now we're kind of getting to the really contentious ones. Next up, we got Orange Mask Obito. Do you want to go ahead and start off with Orange Mask Obito?
Yeah, I mean, Orange Mask Obito, he's very fun to talk about. I will say, there's a lot of different avenues you can go with off of him. One that we're gonna talk about is that like he should just be very comparable to Itachi. He's kind of in a similar boat to Pain, where like they're all kind of like narratively compared to one another. Maybe you could say like Obito's stronger. It doesn't really matter because he obviously treats Itachi with respect. He knows if Itachi deduces his abilities, he's at risk of death. So he obviously sees Itachi as a threat. You can apply relativity there. So you kind of have that, and this Sasuke just straight up stated to be surpassing or at the same level of Edo Itachi by the time of the Kabuto fight. And we're going to use like end of Kabuto fight to just be absolutely certain because there's multiple factors surrounding that fight. And it is not a good display of that Sasuke's abilities, to be honest, just due to a multitude of factors. But there is a lot he can do from a strength standpoint. But what do you want to add to Orange Mask Obito? Is there anything you want to jump in on?
So, listen, I think it's more or less not like how Sasuke could like really mess with Orange Mask Obito and where he stacks up, because we already know that like Kamui, right? So Kamui's the big problem. But what could Orange Mask Obito do to like someone like, let's say, end a Kabuto fight EMS Sasuke? Like, what can Orange Mask Obito do on the offensive to really bring this Sasuke down? And it comes down to nothing. That's just it, nothing. BFR, maybe. But if he gets BFR, then Inton just burns him alive from the dimension. So it kind of becomes a problem. And we do think that EMS and the Kabuto fight is what's needed here. And the way that we actually kind of see the EMS could actually beat Obito here is that we know Kamui has a timer. In the Ford data book, it stated to be passive. But as I'm sure you're thinking right now, Minato blitzed it, which is fine, and blitz him. Which just means that Minato blitzed the timer at which it's activating, because it has to have that time. You know what I mean? It's not just some immeasurable timer. It has to have a time at which the ability itself just goes on passively. Or you say that Obito was materialized, thinking he's already beaten Minato because he touches him first technically with his finger, and he thinks he's already won, so he's completely materialized, and then he just can't react to Minato getting behind him and then fully moving downwards on him, so he can't quite fully dematerialize in that time. So there is a threshold of it, and I'm not going to get into Yellow Mask Obito versus Orange Mask Obito, but you could just definitely say they're relative. But like something like the Susanoo arrow should be more than enough to be able to bypass this timer. Or Inton, I don't see like this Obito having any like counter to Inton Kagetsuchi or the Susanoo arrow, because we know that both of these are above Sasuke's like physical combat like peaks, and these are above Itachi's, who like Obito is kind of worried about in some instances. So I think it's pretty fair to say that like combat wise they should at least be in the same tier, as we know that like EMS isn't quite KCM2 level at this point, but he is not much longer after that, and Obito needed like a whole Renegon to get on that level, so he's probably not there yet. So like EMS Sasuke should be comparable to Obito in base stats. I just think that's pretty fair, and that's being generous to Obito because he doesn't have much in this form at all. And then so you just say that like in the 5 Kage Summit, we know that like Danzo was able to keep up with a peak like Chidori Sasuke in combat speed, and he moves the same like timing and everything. But when it comes down to the Susanoo arrow and Enton, it's just a complete blitz and stomp, and Danzo just has to give it up to like his Izanagi. So I think that like EMS in the Kabuto fight could probably just bypass the Conway and just ends up beating Orange Mask Obito. What do you think?
Yeah. I'll add in too, because I agree with a lot of what you're saying.
Yep.
Even if you're under the opinion that like he passively could, you go off the passive Kamui, just Kamui through the Amaterasu and arrows. That doesn't change the fact that Obito has no offensive presence in this fight, because Sasuke can just code himself and Enton, which would just make it that, okay, even if like he's not, it just makes that Obito doesn't have a win con because he's not going to be able to BFR him. So it's just like, okay, now Sasuke has all the opportunity to fish out intel and pretty much capitalize on when Obito does materialize. And we know he can also shoot his Enton as projectile and stuff like that. He can make Yasaka Magatana bead. So it's pretty much that he could just make himself, he can pretty much just have a defense the whole time, like without Obito. This also gets into the Amaterasu Blitz Streak.
Next up, we have Itachi. Now, this Itachi is a lot more complicated than Obito, because one, he has a lot more showings, and narratively, it's very, he's kind of like the Minato for Naruto Surpass, but he's like for Sasuke, right? So, I will say, let's just get straight into Heavy Sasuke does not scale to Itachi. That's just straight up, okay? He's not Heavy Sasuke level. I don't think any of you guys should disagree with this. This has been pretty obvious through the last couple years and been a general consensus. If you guys really want some evidence, Zetsu at the end of the fight gets really weirded out, and he's like, no, Itachi's not dead. He's playing fake dead, because he was acting weird. You do not see how he fought Black Zetsu? Like, he's very weirded out by how Itachi fought, his movements, and how he's already dead. He knows that there's certain stuff he should have been able to dodge that he did on purpose. You can see this when he pulls the Amaterasu off Heavy Sasuke from killing him. It's just very bad. He perception blitzes him during their Shuriken clash. I mean, seriously. Yeah, Heavy Sasuke is not Itachi level. That's just blatant. But narratively, we know that like a normal full power like Itachi is what's really complicated, and narratively he should be above like 5 Kage Summit Sasuke, or at least on that like level of like peak 5 Kage Summit Sasuke, because Sasuke throughout the whole duration is compared to Itachi, and it's like the idea of him finally trying to get like Itachi to get back on Danzo, stuff like that. So he's trying to get to that level, I guess, and it's like pretty much you have the characters who are above the main like cast and the forms that are needed to get on their level. Like, so example, and they're like above the Sannin like forms or whatever. So for example, like Naruto, his like Sannin sensei's Jiraiya gets beat up by Pain. Then Naruto gets Sage mode and is on, not quite on the level of Pain, but he's on the level like a weakened Pain, whatever, right? Then Sasuke, Orochimaru, that's his Sannin mentor, gets absolutely blitzed and one shot by a blind, death-ridden Itachi. And then, Sasuke goes on to start getting the narrative of finally surpassing Itachi. And it's kind of implied that he's getting there towards the end of the 5 Kage Summit against Danzo. But it's pretty much directly stated in the Ford data book that the end of Kabuto fight EMS is where he's, low-key starts to surpass Itachi. Do you want to go ahead and get into that, or?
Yeah, I mean, because I'm not gonna lie, like there is a lot to the Kabuto fight, and we're not gonna sit here and dissect it. We could talk about. I have an EMS Sasuke video where I actually do dissect the fight. And it's just it's not a good look for Sasuke, but it's not Sasuke's fault. I'll say that. So I'll say this: if you're using the fight itself as a measure for Sasuke, that is the incorrect way to look at it, because you're just ignoring all the factors surrounding that fight. There's a lot of micro interactions that we're not going to get into for the sake of the video, but just note that that fight is not a good representation, and it's not a point of Sasuke being weak. You could also look at Sasuke, right? He also just doesn't acclimate with his EMS. He doesn't use it at all. So this fight could also just be seen on top of not being a good look, him just practicing. So him just surpassing Itachi by the end of it, being realized as his equal, Itachi revealing the truth to him. Plus Sasuke also potentially receiving some type of hatred amp, because he also does know his hatred towards Konoha has grown. He actually says it multiple times to Orochimaru and stuff like that. So there is also like the amps I mentioned previously are also present here. They don't go away with his EMS. Like, he still can get hatred amps. So when you kind of look at that and everything surrounding it, it just does seem consistent that the end of the Kabuto fight is either quite literally at his level or just surpassed it blatantly.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think like end of Kabuto fight is on the level of a peak Itachi or just greater than. I think that's being like on a higher interpretation to Itachi as well. Like, you could say that like end of 5 Kage Summit's above, but I'm not really of that interpretation. But just for the sake of comparison, we'll just say the EMS is just above him right there. Next up, we got Edo Madara. Now, Edo Madara is one of the most contentious ones on here in deciphering it, because there's a safe option and there's one that's also correct, but it's not going to be so safe, and the reactions to this is going to be pretty bad. But listen, Edo Madara isn't on the level of a live EMS Madara. That's obvious, right? So saying that peak EMS Sasuke could beat Edo weakened Madara shouldn't be that hard of a take. Do you want to talk about this?
Yeah. And listen, I'm not going to repeat what I said about the video before, but I will say this comes from a couple places. One, Sasuke performs well against Obito, who just is blatantly stated stronger than Edo Hashirama. Edo Hashirama stalemates with Edo Madara. Everyone's following. It's pretty self-explanatory. Then this Obito actually gets control of the Ten Tails. So this statement was being made about unstable Obito. So you have Sasuke and Naruto acclimating to this. They're adapting. A lot of people like to point at the power-ups, these severe amps that Sasuke gets against Obito. That being the curse mark and the small portion of Naruto's chakra. I'm not going to go into depth here because I'm going to talk about this obviously. But I don't think these are that big of amps. They're not really displayed to be that much of amps. Naruto's Kyuubi's chakra is more of a multiplier. And it's for smaller, lower abilities like the Gentle Fist, like the Air Palm. It's not multiplying Sasuke Susanoo. So Sasuke's feats against Obito do stand. But even if you do think that the amps that he has put him on the same level as Naruto, it doesn't matter, because even if I did grant you that, he has the perfect Susanoo, which is stronger than the previous form that was keeping up with Obito and matches with Naruto. And the perfect Susanoo is known to, like, what's displayed to be on the same level of the Kurama avatar. So it would be pretty consistent that not only does he kind of have like the reaction time and the ability to combat somebody, Edo Hashirama quite literally said would have folded him even if he absorbed his remaining clones, but he also has a comparable Susanoo. Do you want to jump in on this?
Yeah, and even going back to like this is a perfect Susanoo. And even if you go back to Ribcage Susanoo in the Jubito fight, like whenever Minato and Tobirama and Naruto were there, you can actually see that during like the Minato encounter and stuff like that, where they later go on to perform like feats of like combo attacks and stuff, you can actually see that like Sasuke's Susanoo just low-key blitzes Casey on 1.5 and that Casey and Minato stuff. So, you know, a lot of people are quick to bring up the Tobirama feat or whatever, but don't forget Sasuke is also reacting there as well, almost passively with the Susanoo, and that's like a way lower evolved one. So I think peak EMS Sasuke should just be able to beat up Edo Madara, just again due to scaling like above Jubito, who's above Madara. And you could say that Madara was planning to fight Jubito, and let's be honest, it just wouldn't have worked. Jubito would have absolutely fooled him, because when Madara had this whole plan, he had the plan prior to like when he was actually going to do it, and he just wouldn't have known how strong Ten Tails like Obito actually was. So this is him just hypothesizing and thinking, yeah, with Hashirama's Sage Mode, I could probably be unmatched. You know, he doesn't really have a definitive, concrete, objective answer to where this Obito would scale, I guess, and if he would even be confident of taking him out. Like, his best advantage against this Obito would just be the fact that he's Edo, and that doesn't even do anything, because the True Seeking Orbs will actually permanently remove his body parts, like how they did to Minato.
He outright thanks Naruto. He outright thanks Naruto for weakening Obito. And it's my personal interpretation that he was probably going to weaken Obito's will by revealing the truth to Rin and just, like, having the Ten Tails, like, destabilize with him. So, because there's no other way he would have beaten Obito. There's quite literally no other option. So that has to be it. Otherwise, Kishimoto was just capping when writing that scene, because it's not plausible, honestly. And we said peak EMS. If that's a hot take for you, if you got soft hands, you could just say Rinnegan Sasuke. And I also want to say something too. We are not saying peak EMS Sasuke beats peak EMS Madara, because Madara's alive amp is like pretty substantial. It's like a pretty big jump. Like, he comes back to life with no eyes. And is stronger than his Edo counterpart, at least in like a physical sense. So we're not saying that, but this Edo Madara does kind of get clipped a little bit, just by a Sasuke that's just fighting somebody and competing with somebody who is just stronger than Madara himself. It's pretty.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. So peak EMS Sasuke, does beat Madara. Now, our last kind of comparison is we're just gonna bundle them together, because I'm gonna be honest, they kind of just get stuck in the same category. And that's Juubi Madara and Juubi Obito. And this is just Rinnegan Sasuke. Rinnegan Sasuke low-key stomps both of them. Now, TG did bring up something for like Kaguya fight Sasuke's intern Kagetsuchi to me right before this, and it's low-key busted. And if you go to that fight, you can see like when they're in the ice, they can't move and stuff. Naruto's not physically capable of moving through this ice. And this is a Naruto who's able to hold her portals open, literally hold the time-space portals entirely. The True Seeking Orbs that nullify and counter everything perfectly can't do anything at all. And Sasuke just burns through it with Inton. What? He just burns through it. That is ridiculous. And most people really forget the tier that Kaguya is on. If you're like, that's just ice. There's no way. People don't know, like, most people think that Three-Eyed Madara and Kaguya are comparable. They are not. They are not comparable whatsoever in any sense. Most people just don't know that in the 4 data book, the Amino Manaka rods, her bone, like Ash Jutsu rods, those are actually stated to like require such a threshold of chakra that nobody alive could ever use them except for her, which implies that a singular rod is above Three-Eyed Madara's usable chakra reserves. Which this kind of alludes to why Sasuke was like, a being like this exists, and that's why he was so freaking out, because now you kind of understand the level that Kaguya's at in terms of just chakra that he wasn't. Now, did you have any other thoughts on that?
No,
or?
I mean, literally, Madara was about to blow up from the sheer volume of chakra. And a lot of people don't understand the reason Kaguya and the Otsutsuki are generally so much stronger as well is because they can use all this chakra freely. They don't have to funnel it into jutsu. They can use all of it however they want, which is a big difference that not a lot of people know. This is also why she can just do all this dimension shifting and all this nonsense. It's a step above like what shinobi do. Ninshu fundamentally is like a subsection of what the Otsutsuki do. Ninshu is a subsection of what the Otsutsuki do. Just like manipulate all this chakra freely as opposed to ninja who have to funnel it, channel it, use hand signs, all of this stuff. So there is a pretty distinct difference chakra volume wise. Sasuke is just acclimating to this Kaguya going stronger. He actually is kind of on par with Naruto in the Final Valley. A lot of people don't like to bring this up because yeah, Naruto has techniques that could just defeat Sasuke pretty blatantly. But Naruto's QB avatar was not really threatening to Sasuke. Sasuke also notes this. So he's not actually that far off from Naruto, as some people may claim.
Yeah, and even if you want to say that Naruto didn't use Boil Release in the Final Valley, Sasuke also didn't use like a lot of his other eye abilities that he could have used to give him like another advantage as well. So it kind of goes both ways there. And Rinnegan Sasuke goes for both, the Kaguya fight Sasuke, the Madara fight Sasuke, and the Final Valley. So somewhere in there, that Sasuke should just be able to stomp Jubito and Jubidara. Like, honestly, probably wouldn't even be that hard of a fight if I'm going to be completely real. Eminote Jakara literally just completely counters him. We know Jubito cannot react to just blatant normal FTG, like teleportation. So something like Eminote Jakara, like teleporting to like a rock or something, it's just very bad. And if he has like Entorn on top of that, which literally would just might burn through a true Seeking Orb, unironically, it's just very bad.
I have
a
good analogy too with Amino Tajikara.
Yeah,
if you like consistently, if you look at it, every time Sasuke, and it does work on Kaguya, he actually catches Kaguya with it. He forces her to dimension shift. So, which is crazy, and she doesn't do that because it takes a ton of chakra. He forces her to go to the ice dimension when Naruto and Sasuke are about to seal her. And when he's about to Chidori her in the gravity dimension, she also shifts again. So this teleportation is like pressing Kaguya to consistently shift dimensions, which Black Zetsu notes she shouldn't do recklessly because it consumes enormous amount of chakra because it teleports everybody there. So imagine that on these like way too inferior fighters. He would just be like astronomically above what they could react to.
Yeah, no, just completely. So we think Rinnegan Sasuke does stomp them, and yeah, that's the video. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think me and TG are just off our rockers? Do you guys think we're spot on every single placement? That's not happening. Anyway, just let me know what you guys thought in the comment section below. Make sure to go check him out and go check his new EMS Sasuke video out. Fire, many good things brought up, and yeah, as always, love you guys.